Hello and welcome to Conversations with Amy Berger. Today we're going to be chatting about the top three myths that get in the way of fat loss on a keto diet. We also have a special for you, and it's Dr. Westman's brand new quiz. We'll tell you a little bit more about that quiz at the end of today's episode, and we'll also put a link for you in the description. Let's get started. How are you doing, Amy?
I'm doing well, Glenn. How about you?
Very good, thank you. And so good to have you on today, and also for the next 2 weeks. I know that folks will get tremendous value out of these episodes because we're talking about an important topic, and that is fat loss stalls on a keto diet. Now, you also wrote the book, The Stall Slayer. So you're pretty much a guru when it comes to anything fat loss related on a keto diet. Why do you think this is such an important topic?
Well, yeah, I don't know that I would say I'm a guru, but if any information I can provide helps somebody out there, then that's definitely what we want. I think it's important to talk about the dreaded fat loss stall because a lot of people come into a ketogenic or low carb diet thinking that weight loss is just magical. It's effortless. They've found the holy grail. All they have to do is cut back on their carbs and the weight is just going to fall off of them. And, for some people that is true. For some people that happens, but more often, maybe, weight will come off, but then you hit that roadblock and you think you're doing everything right and you're doing what a lot of other people out there are telling you to do. But unfortunately, there's some people out there that are giving advice and information that may not be that helpful depending on people's situations. And most fat loss stalls are pretty easy to get over once you have the right information.
Now, the topic is the top three myths relating to these stalls, these fat loss stalls. So let's kick it off with your number one reason or top three myths relating to a fat loss stall on a keto diet.
Yeah, honestly, it's hard to narrow it down to three. But if I had to pick the three most common, stumbling blocks that I see for people, the first is probably simply too much fat in the diet. People think of keto as a high fat diet, and they might be eating more fat than they were before. But the truth is, if you eat more fat than your body needs, you will not lose the body fat. In fact, it is possible to gain fat on keto if you eat enough fat. When you keep your carbohydrate intake really low, that allows your body to switch over from burning mostly glucose and carbs to burning mostly fat. So, okay, great. Now we're burning fat. We definitely want that. But if you're eating too much fat from your food, then your body has no need to tap into all the stored fat to use for fuel. And that's really all body fat is, excess fat. It's extra fuel and food to use when you're not getting enough. So when people think that they have to hit some kind of fat macro or that they have to have a certain percentage of fat in their diet, that can definitely get in the way. And it's people that we're definitely not afraid of fat. I mean, we love to eat fat on keto, but you don't have to go out of your way to add lots and lots of extra fat, especially if you don't even want to. Some people are putting butter in their coffee or drowning everything in oil because they think they're supposed to. They don't even really have a desire to. They just think that's what keto is, and that just overdoing the fat is probably number one on the list.
Now, on that topic, how did this begin? I mean, why are people thinking that they need to hit these fat macros and add in all these, the bulletproof coffees and the drowning everything in butter and oil? I mean, where did this come from?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of different places. The first is this is what they're hearing from lots of other places out there. They're being told to do this. So they think that they are following someone's instructions. But I think it's partly based in the origins of the ketogenic diet as a medical treatment versus as a weight loss strategy. The ketogenic diet was originally developed as a treatment for children with epilepsy. And they very often do need much, much more fat. than the average person, and much, much, much lower carbs. But the way that you construct your keto or low carb diet really needs to be a little bit different depending on your goal. If you're trying to lose weight or reverse type 2 diabetes, it's different from somebody with epilepsy or someone with some other severe medical condition that really needs a very targeted strategy. And also the abbreviation LCHF has become very popular the last few years, low carb, high fat. So people assume that the high fat is part of that. Whereas when I was brand new to all this over 15 years ago, we all just called it low carb. Nobody called it low carb, high fat. It was just low carb.
Is it possible that the high fat could be the fat that comes from our own body as opposed to nutritional fat that we eat?
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. So biochemically and physiologically inside, it is a high fat diet. You're right. But only some of the fat is coming from your plate and the rest of it is coming from your own body. So yeah, that's that's true.
And as Dr. Westman calls it, your pantry on board, your onboard pantry.
Right. The fridge, on my body's own
Right.
pantry.
All right. So that was point number one. What is your second big one to add to this topic?
The second one is too many carbs. Because, like I said, when I was new to this, we all called it low carb, because that keeping your carbs really low is what makes the diet a ketogenic diet. Ketones don't come from eating lots and lots of fat or doing anything special. Ketones come from keeping your carbohydrate really low, from switching like just because you eat a lot of fat doesn't mean you become what Dr. Westman calls a fat burning machine. You become a fat burning machine when your body doesn't have enough carbohydrate coming in, so it needs to shift over to burning something else for energy, and it's going to burn fat. So when people are just eating a little bit too much carbohydrate to make that happen in their own body, then they're not going to get the results they want. And everybody's carbohydrate threshold differs. Some people can eat, a fairly generous amount and still have a healthy metabolism and be burning fat. Many others really need to keep things very, very strict. So just too many carbs. I mean, that's such low hanging fruit, no pun intended, but that's a very easy thing to adjust to start getting things going again.
Now, on that topic, before we move on to the final biggest myth, what about the fact that people might be mistakenly, when you're talking about the carbs are not low enough, how about the fact that people may be using the net carb method versus the total carb method, and inadvertently they think they're limiting the carbs, but in fact they're not?
Right. And you kind of said a very helpful word there, inadvertently, because again, this is something other people out there are saying. Net carbs is, for those who don't know, it's the total carbohydrate in a food minus the fiber and minus any sugar alcohols that are used to sweeten, things like maltitol, erythritol, xylitol. And again, for some people that works. For some people, that's fine. For many others, their body does. I mean, the sugar alcohols are not without any glycemic impact at all. They differ. There's a lot of different kinds of sugar alcohols. Many of them do have a substantial impact on blood sugar and insulin. And if that's happening, you're not getting the metabolic effect you think you're getting by keeping your carbs low. And it's the counting net carbs also sometimes goes hand in hand with people eating too much fat. And I'll give you one example. At least in the US anyway, there's a lot of ice creams being advertised as keto ice cream or keto friendly. And you look and one serving has maybe 20 or 30 grams of total carbs, maybe only 2 or 3 net carbs, but it's loaded with these sugar alcohols that some people might be responding to. And not only that, they're very, very high in fat. And not just the ice creams, but the same would hold true for things like keto cookies and keto brownies, things that have a lot of coconut oil or almond flour, very, very high fat items that you just don't realize what you're doing to yourself. But it's like you said, it's inadvertent. You think, oh, 2 net carbs this is really low in carbs, but
in reality, it's
people
not.
don't realize the effect that those things are having.
All right, so you've given us your top two. You've kept us in suspense. Hit us with your biggest myth, your third and final biggest myth when it comes to fat loss on a keto diet.
Well, I hate to say this one, believe me, but it kind of goes hand in hand with the fat, and that's calories. I hate the C word. We all hate the C word on low carb and keto diets, but calories do matter. You cannot eat an unlimited amount of food. Again, even if you're in ketosis, even if you are burning fat, if you are just simply taking in too much food energy, your body doesn't have to turn to all this beautiful stored energy on your body. And that can come from carbs or fat, or alcohol is a biggie. Protein is not a protein just biochemically is it's very hard to gain fat eating more protein, but excess calories from anything can be an issue. And I'll borrow a line from Dr. Westman, and I've read it in other people's books too. Calories count, but that doesn't mean you have to count them. If you keep your carbs low enough, your appetite kind of self-regulates. You're just not as hungry anymore, and you naturally eat less. So you end up eating fewer calories without deliberately saying, well, I'm at my calories for the day, I can't eat anymore, or without having to force yourself to go hungry because you've reached your limit or something. So just simply overdoing the total amount of food, not honoring the hunger and not paying attention to the fact that you aren't as hungry.
Amy, that is absolutely invaluable information. But before we go, I want to just recap those three. Myth number one is folks are eating too much fat. Number two, people are not lowering the carbs sufficiently or enough, or they may be using the net carb method when they should be using the total carb method. And the third and final one, which is a huge one, is that calories do in fact matter and they do count. And
I wish they didn't, but they do.
But that is absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much. That's all we have time for today, folks. Before you leave, just a reminder about the special bonus that we have for you. It is a new quiz based on Dr. Westman and Amy Berger's new book called End Your Carb Confusion. And if you haven't read the book, if you'd like to determine your own personal carb threshold and how to customize your carb intake, then this quiz is absolutely for you. If you would like to learn about some of our upcoming courses, some exciting new courses coming on board, you can find us at adaptyourlifeacademy.com. Amy, thank you so much for your time. We look forward to catching up with you again next week. Until then, thank you so much.